Picture retirement. You know the image already: a cruise ship railing, a grandchild on your shoulders, a porch, a sunset, something cold in your hand, palm trees somewhere in the background. That image isn't fake. Those moments happen, but they happen a handful of days a year. Retirement has roughly 10,000 days in it. So what fills the other 9,995? Not the cruise, not the postcard, just an ordinary morning, over and over again. That's the real question nobody asks out loud. Nobody puts it in the brochure. Nobody puts it in the brochure because it doesn't sell timeshares. Stick with me for the next 12 minutes. By the end, you'll have all 7. And probably a good idea of which ones you're already missing. We looked at retirees sitting on $1 million or more, not the ones who inherited it. The ones who built it slowly, over decades of ordinary paychecks and ordinary decisions, and are now living off it without watching it shrink year after year. Different balances, different zip codes, different careers entirely, from teachers to electricians to small business owners. But underneath all of that, 7 small habits kept showing up again and again, almost like a fingerprint. Not investment tricks, not a secret fund, not some app they all downloaded, not a guru, not a course, not a seminar at the community center. Things so small you'd walk right past them if you weren't looking for them. We almost did too the first time. Here they are. First, they check one number before anything else. Not the news, not email, not their neighbor's post about a new boat. One number. First thing, before the day gets a chance to talk them into something. For some, it's their total balance. For others, it's what they've spent this month against what they budgeted. Robert is 74, a retired electrician, worked 41 years on the job. He does this over 1 cup of coffee, takes less than a minute. I'm not obsessing over it, he told us. I just refuse to let a number surprise me 3 months from now. That distinction matters more than it sounds like it should. Retirees rarely get in trouble from 1 bad month. They get in trouble because 6 quiet months went unchecked, and the 7th one is a shock. A 60-second glance kills that shock before it forms. Nothing dramatic about it, just a habit that quietly stands guard. Second, they move before they scroll. There's a real cost to becoming, as one researcher put it, a couch with opinions. And it isn't just about waistlines. Morning light sets your internal clock. That clock decides whether you sleep soundly or lie awake doing math on the ceiling at 3 a.m. Carol is 69, retired nurse. She walks 2 laps around her block before she looks at a screen. 15 years. Rain or shine. Doesn't matter the season. Cheapest health insurance I've ever bought, she says. And she's not wrong. A major health event is one of the fastest ways a comfortable retirement turns into a stressed one. 10 minutes outside won't fix everything, but it moves the odds in your favor every single day it happens. Third, they guard their sleep like it's an asset on the balance sheet, because in a sense, it is. When you were working, your schedule forced a bedtime on you. Retirement removes that guardrail completely, and "I'll just stay up and watch one more thing" quietly turns into no schedule at all. The sharp ones keep it boring on purpose. Same bedtime, same wake time, dark room, cool room, phone out of the bedroom entirely. A scrolling thumb at midnight does the same thing to your brain as a shot of espresso. Every other habit on this list works worse when you're not sleeping well. It's the foundation the whole house sits on. Skip it, and every other habit on this list gets harder to keep. Quick pause. If this is already making you think of someone in your life, go ahead and hit like now. It genuinely helps more people see this. And we've still got 4 more habits to go. Fourth, they put themselves on an information diet. On purpose. Be honest about what a normal day looks like. News on when you wake up. Phone in hand by breakfast. Some cousin furious in the group chat by lunch. The same channel humming all afternoon telling you the world is on fire. Then you wonder why you feel keyed up and vaguely uneasy by dinner, even though nothing actually happened to you personally that day. That's not aging catching up with you. That's marination, plain and simple. When you were working, a full-time job simply didn't leave you the hours to steep in all of it. Now suddenly, you do have those hours. And there is an entire industry, a genuinely profitable one, built specifically to keep you alarmed, because alarmed, anxious people don't change the channel, and they definitely don't put the phone down. The level-headed ones check the news once, on purpose, and then they turn it off. That isn't ignorance. It's rationing. You spent 40 years earning this peace. Don't hand it back for free to a screen that profits off your blood pressure. You already paid for this peace once. Don't pay for it twice. Fifth, they keep something alive that depends on them. Sounds unrelated to money at first. It isn't, not really. For most of your working life, something needed you every single day. A job, a team, kids, a mortgage payment that had to get made no matter what. Retirement can quietly remove all of that at once, sometimes within a single month of your last day at work, and what's left behind is a hole shaped exactly like being needed. Nobody warns you about that hole ahead of time. The sharpest retirees fill that hole on purpose, deliberately, instead of waiting to see if it fills itself. A garden that wilts if it's ignored for a week. A dog that stages a one-animal protest if the walk gets skipped. Even a few tomato plants lined up on a windowsill. It doesn't care about your excuses, and that is exactly the point. Something small, daily, and non-negotiable turns out to be one of the most stabilizing forces in a human life. It doesn't ask what kind of day you're having. It just needs you to show up. One more thing before the last few habits. If you're already doing 2 or 3 of these without even thinking about it, tell us which ones down in the comments. We actually read them, every single one, and it helps us know exactly what to cover next. Sixth, and this is the one most people never build. They review their spending like a professional runs an audit, not like a worried person nervously checks a scale, once a week, sometimes once a month. Never daily, because daily would make anyone a little crazy. They sit down and ask one plain question. At this current pace, is my number going up, staying flat, or going down? Not the balance itself. The trajectory underneath it. Diane is 71, widowed 6 years now. She calls this her Sunday 15 minutes. She doesn't panic if a single month runs a little hot. She just wants to know before a single hot month turns into a pattern instead of staying a harmless accident. And that distinction, pattern versus accident, ends up mattering enormously over a 20 or 30-year retirement. The retirees who eventually run into real trouble almost never do it suddenly, in one dramatic collapse. They drift for a year or two without checking anything at all, and the drift slowly becomes the crisis. 15 minutes on a Sunday is about the cheapest insurance against that kind of drift that exists anywhere. No advisor fee, no spreadsheet software, just 15 honest minutes with yourself. Seventh, they close the day by writing down 3 things that went right. Sounds small enough to skip entirely, and that is exactly why most people skip it. Here's the actual mechanism behind it, because we're not asking you to just take this on faith. Your brain evolved to remember danger first. It lets good, ordinary moments slide right past unnoticed. That wiring was useful if something with teeth was hunting you across a savanna. It is nearly useless if you're simply trying to feel content in a quiet, safe life decades later. Deliberately hunting for 3 good things at night, on purpose, slowly retrains that old default setting until it stops working against you. Robert keeps a small notebook sitting by his coffee pot, nothing fancy, just a spiral pad from the drugstore. He writes in it before bed, never after. 2 minutes most nights, sometimes less. After a few weeks, something genuinely starts to shift. You begin noticing the good moment while it's still happening, because some part of you already knows it's getting written down later that night. Small trick, real effect. Robert says it changed more than he expected it to. Lay all 7 of these side by side for a second and look at what they actually have in common. None of them cost a single dollar, not one. Check one number. Move before you scroll. Guard your sleep like an asset. Ration the noise on purpose. Keep something alive. Audit your spending like a professional, not a worrier. Write down what actually worked. Combined, all 7 take less time most mornings than it takes to finish a first cup of coffee. Not one of them requires a financial advisor sitting across a desk from you. Not one requires a gym membership you'll use twice and forget about. Not one requires a single dollar leaving your account, ever, at any point. Robert didn't start with $1 million sitting comfortably in an account somewhere. He started with a modest pension, a paid-off house, and a cheap notebook by the coffee pot, repeated quietly for 15 years without missing many days along the way. Carol started with even less than that, and nobody would have guessed where she'd end up. Neither one of them got here on one single good decision. They got here on 7 small ones, repeated so many times that they eventually stopped feeling like decisions at all. That's the part nobody wants to hear. It's not glamorous. It just works. Here is the part we are not going to dress up for you, because you deserve the honest version. None of this works if you try it for 4 days and then quietly quit and go back to old patterns. And none of these 7 habits replace actually having your finances in order in the first place, before any of this even matters. Money is still the tool, the thing that buys you the freedom to have 10,000 ordinary Tuesdays instead of worrying through them. These habits are simply what you build with that tool once you already have it firmly in hand. A full account sitting behind none of these habits is just as hollow, in its own quiet way, as having none of the money at all. So don't try to install all 7 of these tomorrow morning at once. That is the fastest possible way to end up doing none of them. Pick the single one that landed hardest while you were watching this. Start there tomorrow morning, and only there. Nothing else for now. Master it fully before you move on. Then add a second one next month, once the first one feels automatic. That's how all 7 eventually stick, one at a time, not all at once. And before we close, one small ask. If you've made it this far, you clearly care about getting this right. Drop a comment telling us which habit you're starting with tomorrow. Say it out loud, even if it's just to us. People who write it down are far more likely to actually do it. If any of this was genuinely useful to you today, go ahead and subscribe before you head off to whatever's next. Every single week, we sit down and break apart exactly what separates the retirees who are quietly thriving from the ones who are quietly struggling underneath a perfectly fine-looking surface, and we do it backed by real numbers, never by guesses or gut feelings. 10,000 Tuesdays is a lot of days to get right. Might as well start with tomorrow.